think it'll look quite good. Like, I'll fill the whole thing. You know what, it was funny because, well, it's not funny, but I did these workshop things the other day, and what was surprising is I think I did about 8 of them, and 8 people all had something very different they wanted to talk about. It wasn't just about lighting or about photography or anything. And this one woman wanted to talk to me about why she was really reluctant to get her portrait taken. So we had this like conversation for an hour. Anyway, I must have been relatively reassuring, because then she flew down this morning to get a picture taken. And we did it. And it was, I think, I mean, we took beautiful pictures, but I think it was kind of telling about the fact that, you know, it's a kind of unintimidating place to come to. And I think that, you know, perhaps her experience of having a photograph taken in the past had been quite one-sided. And I think, like a lot of photographers, I think what they often don't get is that when you are making a picture of somebody, that it's not about you necessarily imposing your idea completely on somebody, that there has to be some form of give and take, and that it has to be a collaboration. So maybe that's why it worked. And I think she felt that she contributed as much to the picture as I did, which ultimately made a good picture. But also, for now at least, in this circumstance, she didn't feel, well, she left having kind of enjoyed the experience. I think for a lot of my career, I never even thought about that. I would be like, I've got an idea for a picture. I want to photograph you like this. You know, I mean, it's easier to control in here because the studio, it's very much in the studio, and the parameters of the picture are already set. So often when you're on location, there's a different mindset. But I think what this whole thing has taught me is about that there's only, it's not only so much I can do, but there's something that I have to give to someone, and then they come back to me with something, and then between the two of us, we end up with a picture. And you can't kind of foresee what that picture's going to be at the beginning in any way. And even though at times like I feel like I'm just repeating the same process over and over again, what's been very interesting about editing all of these down is that you realize that every single frame is very, very different. And when you see all the pictures together, like I'm starting to in the window now, you realize that the whole body of work is quite varied, and there's something very there's something quite endearing about that, because you get a real sense of exactly who the people are without any other, in a quite a democratic way. You're not making assumptions about the picture based on where they live or what their house is like, or, you know, whether it's an Eames chair they're sitting on or not. They're basically sitting in a very neutral space, wearing, you know, just a shirt usually, or, you know, their own clothes, and, you know, but then within that, something comes to life. Anyway, that's what I reckon today. I mean, I kind of like even the fact that this whole studio is kind of, people are quite mystified as to what goes on in here. For the last year, I've just been doing this project, you know, taking all these portraits of people, and but there's no reference to it anywhere here. So if you don't know about it, then you don't, you know, people, if they're not on Instagram, they have no idea what's going on. So this is the first time. It feels a bit like, you know, by putting them in the windows, I'm kind of revealing to the locals what is happening in here. And like, interestingly, when we did this exhibition during lockdown with like plastering pictures on the windows. And I really thought, because it was Willara, that it would be considered like graffiti and that we were in some way, you know, defacing the building. But then I'd be in here during lockdown and there'd be like 40 people out in the street looking at the pictures. And then the whole feedback from them was that, no, we loved it. You know, it suddenly felt like somebody was giving something back to the community. So I'm a bit less concerned by putting these up. Be interesting to see what happens though. I started the whole thing because should we go in here and sit down? Like, I quite genuinely felt there was a whole agenda around the sort of work that I was doing, in that it was all commissioned. Majority of it's commissioned, and that being the case, it often meant that, you know, we were imposing quite a bit on the person that we were photographing. So there would be stylists, there would be dressing them, there would be a hairdresser and a makeup artist and all the rest, and ultimately it would be published in a magazine. But in parallel to that, I loved this idea of having a studio that felt more democratic, that anyone could come to. And it was a little bit born out of the fact that when I would photograph people often, that I was kind of more interested in the person that walked through the door than I was in the person that we kind of created at the end of the day. So I started this thing, I started it, I had this idea that I wanted to have a portrait studio that anyone could come to. I had no idea how I was going to make it work. Because I thought, well, I can do it two ways. I can either charge a lot of money and just do a few of them, and I probably could have gone that route because I had kind of okay reputation. Or I thought I could charge a lot less money and photograph a lot of people, which appealed to me more because I just thought that just seemed, I mean, I also, you know, I like doing stuff, so I thought that would at least. So I put it on Instagram that I was going to do a day of portraits. And the first day was, you know, they sold out really quickly. Initially I made them too cheap, but it did get the whole project going. And then I settled on what was a realistic price that was inexpensive enough not to really put too many people off being able to come. And then I also wanted that the pictures had there was no agenda, unlike other, like those kind of Westfield studios where you go in and you pay a price and you get a picture done. And then before you even get access to the pictures, you've got to buy prints and you've got to buy, I mean, there's just so much upselling. I mean, I just think it's immoral. So my whole idea was I just take these pictures and then I give them all to you and you can use them. Honestly, if you can get them on a billboard in Times Square, great, go for it. They're your pictures. So I started doing it and I've done it now for a year and it's honestly become far more important to me than I ever thought it was. It's been more rewarding than I ever imagined it could be. It just keeps getting better and better. It's now, I would say, like in practical terms, it's about 30% of what I do. Quite honestly, I would like it to be 99% of what I do, because I just feel it's on my terms. I'm connecting with people in a different way than I have before around making photographs. And I think that whole idea of it being collaborative is a big part of it that, you know, that's harder to achieve when there are a lot of other people in the room. So it's, I don't know, quite happy to keep going, see where it goes. I've definitely got no intention of not doing it for the next however long. I'd love the idea of like shuffling down the street in my 80s, you know, in some kind of suit and some nice church's shoes, you know, and coming into my studio and photographing people. Hello? Hey, that's a very good prod. Yes, because I'm actually in the middle of someone's filming me for something. But I'm glad you rang because you know what I'm going to do, Connor? I'm actually going to go and pick up the hard drive. Where is it? Wait a second. I've got the ELVIS hard drive. Right. I remember. Yes. And then there was a time when I think Baz took my camera and started taking pictures. Do you remember that? Yeah, and there might be some. Okay, no, I remember. Anyway, I've got it here. I better get back to what I'm doing, but I've got it. We're getting there, Connor. We're getting there. All right, mate. See you. I better go. Take care. Bye. Oh, that's funny. Because I did all the ELVIS pictures, and that's this lovely guy, Connor. He was the stand-in for Austin, and he was extraordinary. He knew every line of dialogue. He could dance like Elvis. And often, he would do, while they were setting up and blocking, especially on all the, the live stuff. Before Austin came in, he would kind of get it to a point where they were ready to shoot. So by the time Austin came on set, they were ready to go, and it was down to him. Anyway, I'm trying to go through all the pictures to find photographs of Connor, and I've been a bit neglectful in getting them to them. Anyway, I told him the other day, I said, look, don't be shy, just ring me on a daily basis until I get this done. That was my little prod from Connor to find these pictures, which I will do now. I've now got I've got one of the hard drives. I got my mother died.
Can we use that as a segue into that and then go back to the beginning?
Yeah, I don't care.
So
yeah.
How did that all start? Because you've done lots of films with Baz Lurhmann, and how did that start?
The whole Baz thing, that started. I was living in New York, and I came back to Australia to do a shoot. I used to do quite a lot of work for Country Road and the clothing label. And I was back in Australia doing a really quite big shoot for them that was over like 3 weeks or something. Some of it was out in the outback, and then there was a big section of it that was in a studio in Surrey Hills, Darlinghurst really. The studio's not there anymore, but it was kind of on the lower side of William Street. And anyway, I had an agent here, and she rang me and she said, look, there's this filmmaker, Baz Lurhmann, he's made this film Strictly Ballroom, which I knew about, but I didn't know Baz. And she said, he's rung because he's looking for a photographer for a project, and I've made an appointment for you to go and meet him. So I went off whenever it was at the time that we'd agreed, and I went down, and Baz and Catherine were there together, and they were living in Rushcutters Bay in a small apartment, and Baz explained to me that he wanted to make this film. He wanted to make Romeo and Juliet, and he kind of explained how he wanted to make it, and but the hold-up was that he couldn't raise the money because nobody thought it was a good idea. And I think the studios were really reluctant, and they obviously couldn't quite understand how he was going to present it, because you've got to remember that up until that point, like Shakespeare had really been on the BBC Play for the Day or something, but, it wasn't considered, very few people were presenting it in a contemporary way. And so he said, look, what I want to do this workshop. I'm going to fly out this young guy, Leonardo DiCaprio, who I think had made like the Basketball Diaries or something at that point. I knew who he was. I'm going to fly this guy out, and I'm going to fly out an actress. I'm going to fly out Natalie Portman. So we want her to play Juliet. Leonardo's going to play Romeo, and we're going to get some, I guess it was Belvoir Street actors to come along, and I'm going to do a kind of workshop, and I want you to photograph it. We're going to record sound. We're going to shoot it over several days, and then I'm going to cut it together, and that's going to, I think, will give me some ammunition to present to the film companies, you know, because then they might try and, they might at least, you know, it might be clearer to them what I'm trying to do. So I was like, all right. And then we decided as well that we should also film it on Super 8, not just shoot stills. So then over 4 days, including like we were in the same studio that I was shooting Country Road in, and then in the alleyways and things around the back of that, I just, we filmed it, and I shot lots of pictures, and they had a sound recordist, and they had another guy with a video camera as well, and collected all this footage. It was pretty powerful because even photographing it, they'd already, interestingly, that shirt that Leo was wearing, which then became kind of synonymous with the film, and that was on the album cover, and I think movie posters, and I think they replicated it in the film. They had bought that at an op shop. Catherine had found it, I think, in Surrey Hills or Newtown, or probably Surrey Hills in those days, in an op shop or in a second-hand clothing shop. So Leo was already wearing that. Anyway, they made these scenes, and then Baz cut it together, put music to it, you know, the dialogue, the whole thing, and that's what he used to sell the idea to the studios, and then he was able to raise the money and make the film. And then along the line somewhere they decided that, I think Natalie was really young, and I think they were worried about her being in Mexico for 6 months or something. So anyway, Claire Danes must have come on board at some point then. But that was the beginning of my relationship with those guys. And so then I've worked on almost everything that they've done in some form or another. You know, even if it just was I was on set for a few days here and there. And they've been like enormously generous to me. Like there was 2 Chanel campaigns I got to do because of my relationship with them. The one with Nicole Kidman and the one with Giselle, that have both, you know, I mean, it's pretty, I mean, you know, they paid for my house basically. And then a few years ago now, one of my eldest daughter was working as a waitress at Icebergs down in Bondi, looking over Bondi Beach. And she rang me and she goes, oh, Baz Lurhmann's here. And he wouldn't have known who she was, but she remembered him because she had been on shoots and stuff, you know. I mean, he knew who she was if she explained who she was. She was like, shall I go and say hello to him? And I was like, yeah, go and say hi. So she went over, and then she rang me, and she was with him, I think, and she said, oh, if you're going to come and pick me up, come and have a chat, come and see Baz, like he wants to see you. I hadn't seen him for ages. And he was having dinner. And I went in, and he goes, I'm making a film on Elvis. And this is years ago. This is a long time ago. This is about 2 years before anything happened. He said, I'm making a film on Elvis, and I'll be in touch because, you know, if you want to be involved. And so then they got in touch. And then originally I was going to go up. They were shooting on the Gold Coast. I was going to go up and do 2 weeks. And then, as Baz has done in the past, he'd kind of farm it out to different people. Like a photographer from New York might come over and put his take on it. And, you know, I would go and do some. And I mean, he's even had Annie Leibovitz come out and do work. Douglas Kirkland, he's amazing photographer. He's just died recently, but he had a really interesting relationship with Baz, and he would come and photograph, and he had done, you know, Marilyn Monroe films. Like he was in his 80s, I think, then. I was on set with him a couple of times. He was quite amazing to watch. And, but then the whole COVID thing happened. Oh, no, yes, because Tom Hanks Anyway, I was about to go and shoot for 2 weeks. I went up, I had a meeting with Baz, we talked about what I was going to do. I came home, and literally the next morning, I got a phone call from the publicist who was in tears, and she was going, something terrible's happened. And I was like, Jesus, what has happened? You know, somebody's died, and she's going, Tom Hanks has got COVID. And, you know, and then the film was like shut down. So then, to their credit, you know, they got it up and running at the end of COVID, like in the middle of COVID, really. And at that point, they said to me, look, do you just want to come and do the whole film? You know, like you can't be flying in it. You know, we can't bring people in from overseas. Nobody be coming and going. You're going to have to come and do some quarantine, and then you'll be on set. So I ended up doing that. And so I went up and I did 2 weeks of quarantine. And then what was quite good was that I was in this hotel at Brisbane Airport. So I arrived in the hotel, and I knew I had 2 weeks, and I at the desk. They get you up, like they pick you up from the airport in this kind of army bus and take you to the hotel. And I had a compass, and I said to the receptionist, I said, I don't care what room you put me, but I want it facing that way, you know, and I like indicated kind of north, because I knew that I wouldn't get any sun if I was on the other side. And I wanted at least to be, and I knew that the windows wouldn't open, which I hate, but I'd like talk myself into dealing with that. Anyway, they're like, what are you talking about? I say, look, I don't care, just like please up high and facing that way. And they were like, okay, we'll have room, whatever it was. So I ended up locked in this hotel room for 2 weeks. The windows didn't open. But the first thing I did is there were 2 double beds in there. I tipped one up on its side and I built it, and because I had all this gear with me, I made like a little daylight studio near the window. And then I just made pictures using Evian bottles and and then the time went quite quickly, and I got out of quarantine and went on set, and then I was there for the majority of the duration of the film, which I loved. It was extraordinary. I mean, the process of watching something like that getting made is quite often, equally as exciting as seeing the end result. I mean, a great thing, I know he polarises people, Baz. What I love about him is that he's like there's a whole old school mentality around on-set photography. They call it scene coverage. So the on-set photographer basically at the end of each scene has to go and stand next to where the camera was and take a couple of frames of whatever was going on in it. And then they would use them for publicity, or they would use them for reference for something. And Baz is like, I don't need that. I'll just, the digital camera, the files are so big now that he's like, I'll just take it from the camera if I need an exact facsimile of what, Mandy Walker, who's a DP, and I are shooting. So that just gave me a license. He's like, you just go and shoot other stuff, whatever you see that you want to photograph, like tell the story of the making of this film. So behind the scenes, and also, and I was like, yeah, I want to do that. And it would be also great if I could build a little studio on set every day. So I would just unroll a background paper every day, and I'd go over and snaffle like a big sky panel from the gaffers, who were pretty accommodating, as long as I bought them a slab of beer every Friday and dropped it at their thing. They would let me use like a sky panel or whatever they had going really, and I'd put a big softbox on it, and I made a studio. And then what was also extraordinary about that film was that there was only one really big worldwide well-known star, Tom Hanks. So he was the only person that I had to kind of navigate, through his PA. Like if I wanted to do pictures of Tom on the studio, I would have to be like, look, we want to shoot this costume, and they would like, well, let's do it on Friday. Whereas Austin was, it was a big deal for him. He was just dead keen. So almost every scene, or certainly every costume change, he'd come over and we'd take pictures. And then the other actors, Richard Roxburgh and Helen Thompson and David Wenham, all those guys I'd photographed before. Helen I hadn't, but they were just lovely, accommodating people, and they were really excited to be there. And they understood the necessity of kind of documenting the whole thing. So I was able to make studio pictures of them. And then I had a bit of a run-in with the first AD on day one. So they had this English guy there, and he was, it turned out to be good, but he was quite a sort of army drill major. It was all running. It had to run by clockwork. And there's me wandering around with the camera, kind of getting into frame and probably being a little bit too over familiar, but thinking I had some kind of license because I'd worked with Baz for all those years. And And he was like, listen, we just can't work like this. You need to be just like, come in at the end of it, we'll hold the shot. And so he was like clearly thinking this whole idea about scene coverage, which is the traditional way of doing it. And I was like, there's no fucking way I'm doing that. Anyway, he called me out, and then I actually went over to him and I said, listen, we need a chat. This is not going to work. I'm here. I've got to get certain. They need collateral. This film's going to come out, and they're going to need lots of pictures, and this is our opportunity to get them. So let's figure out how to do it. And then he was like, I don't know. I think maybe because I kind of, spoke, didn't get upset, and I spoke to him clearly but nicely. We just sort of worked it out, and then he just sort of gave up on me. So then, and it really got to a point because there's quite a bit of CGI where like I would be shooting, I thought out of frame, and then afterwards Mandy Walker would go, you were in that shot, but don't worry, we'll paint you out. And then eventually they just put me in costume. So I was just like dressed up, and that way I could kind of wander around, and like I'd be watching the cranes. I knew what lenses they had on. I knew when they were shooting over my shoulder, and there were big scenes, so I could make pictures like pretty without, too many restrictions. I mean, there is one part of it where I was walking up to set one day, and there's a really famous series of photographs by this guy called Albert Wertheimer, who was like 19 at the time, and he was commissioned by a magazine. It wasn't Life magazine, but it was like Picture Weekly or something, American, to hang out with Elvis, right on the cusp of Elvis's fame. And Elvis was such a nice, accommodating bloke, and I guess so well-mannered, that he was like, so Albert Wertheimer slept in his hotel room, they're travelling around by train. He took this pretty extraordinary series of pictures, including one from the stage at a gig, I think it was at this Russwood gig, in a sort of baseball field where Elvis played. He was already kind of quite well, he was playing some quite big gigs. Anyway, he took this picture, and he was standing next to the drummer when he took it. And Baz is like, we got to make that picture happen. We want that picture, but we can't make it happen unless it's for real. So I was walking up to set one day, and Baz is like, you can play Albert Wertheimer, even though you're a 60-year-old man and he was 19. But like, if we go and cut your hair, and I'll give you some clothes, 50s clothes. And then Baz is like, because he's so into he's like, yeah, and what about your camera? Like, it's not going to look right. But I know, we've got a million people here who can do anything. We'll get one of the props guys to like put your camera inside another camera. And I was like, look, I can keep my camera out of frame. Don't worry about that. But I will go and get a haircut for you and like walk around in like a sort of 50s suit for 4 or 5 days. So we did it, and as a result we got these pictures that were really like our interpretation of exactly what Albert Wertheimer got, because I was able to be on the stage while they were shooting. But then the whole thing around continuity is that so fundamentally I was just an extra, but if you watch the film quite closely, I mean, the biggest thing that an extra has to do is understand that it's going to be multiple takes of a scene. And if you're like being told to stand there in this scene, in that take, then you fucking better be there for the next one and the next one, because when they cut it together, you can't have somebody there, then they disappear, then they come back. Anyway, if you look at the Russwood scene, I'm kind of there, then I've disappeared, then I'm back, then I'm gone again, because I would just get bored and I would go off and like have lunch or like fiddle around, go and take some pictures of from somewhere else. Yeah. So I think I wasn't probably the editor's friend when they were finally putting the film together. But it did enable us to get some pretty extraordinary pictures. And at the end of it, I think I shot 32,000 frames, which is a lot. And I always look back at work and I go, I wish I'd done this. I wish I'd just done this. I wish I'd, paid more attention to this, and I should have photographed. But that's just me beating myself up afterwards. I think, in general, I'm pretty happy with what we did. And now that the film's kind of finished, well, the whole publicity machine and everything's calmed down, and all the awards have finished, and we'll probably go back there was some talk about there being a book, so we'll probably go back and look at it. It's quite good to look at pictures after, which is why you never throw anything out, because what you often think at the time is a great picture, then you go back and look again a few years later and you're like, wow, I missed that one. I think you definitely have to, but you've also got to have the confidence to do it. And I guess, I think you just learn ways of navigating and negotiating with people. Like, I'm not the sort of person that's just going to be, get in a toe-to-toe fight with somebody over something, because I know well enough that I'm often wrong. And like, he's there trying to, corral God knows how many people to make a film, and that film has to be made on time, and there's a schedule that they have to adhere to, and there's a certain number of pages they've got to get through each day. So, they're not stopping for me. There's no way. But the fact that I was actually probably able to not get offended and not be offensive back, and able to go and just say, hey, look, I've had a chat with Baz, and this is how we had hoped to take pictures on this film, and so it, maybe it's a bit different than how somebody else might do it. I don't know whether it's better or worse, but I'll be more accommodating. And then we just sort of, I don't know, it's all those things. Sometimes someone has to feel they've got to say something. You end up, it ignites a conversation. You sort it out, and then it was all fine. And then we were just laughing about it most of the time. He'd be like, Hugh, you're in frame. And I'd be like, oh, shit, okay, sorry. But also you've got to be like, I'm like super aware as well. I understand, and I really admire what it takes for actors to be in the moment, and to their whole process around how they work. And so I also know that I would never do anything to jeopardize that. Like, I know about, just little fundamental things about eye lines, and about, what it takes for them to get into character. Like, you don't just go and, like, they might finish a scene, or they might finish a take, but that doesn't mean that the door's then open for you to go in there and having a chat to them about the football and taking a few pictures. Like, they're still there, when the director calls action again, and they don't need the distraction of somebody like me getting in their face. So you kind of have to understand the psychology of the whole thing, and so when you can. Interestingly, on that film with Austin, I would take him off set to my studio, and I think the first time we did it, we were just like I was just getting to know him, and we were talking about stuff nothing to do with Elvis. And in some ways, I think he slipped out of being Elvis, right? And then I looked at those pictures, or probably Baz was the one that looked at them, the first couple of times I did it, and he'd be like, these are good pictures, but he doesn't look like Elvis. He's not. And then I realized that when he held all his facial muscles differently, he held his body very differently, so he had to stay. So what we would do is that I wouldn't talk to him at all. We would just, like, there was an acknowledgement that we were going to take pictures, and then he would come over, and then he would stay in character, and then often would just continue, do another take in front of my camera. And then suddenly we're like, man, he looks like Elvis. But it was subtle, it was just this thing around how he held himself, what his breathing, everything. So it's like, it's valuable lesson. Like, you're not photographing Austin Butler, I was photographing Elvis. We had to, in that instance I was, so, yeah. But I love all that. I love the whole psychology around it. I love watching directors, and I love watching actors work. So I got as much enjoyment out of finding pictures on that film as I did out of making them. So part of my whole thing was just wandering around with the camera, finding stuff, finding light, finding people talking to each other. I did a lot of stuff sort of behind the scenes. a lot of stuff of Baz and Austin working together. And in that, those were just me finding things, you know. I wasn't asking anyone to do it. Occasionally I might ask somebody to look towards me or change their eye line a little bit or something, or just move slightly into the light. But in general, that was just me finding pictures. And then, you know, in the studio, there was me making the picture and being far more involved in kind of directing how it was going to look. I liked it. It made the whole time go really, you know, it was exciting, made the days exciting. There's this one picture of Baz, Austin was lying on the floor and he's got this microphone like this, and Baz was standing over him and the light's right behind Baz, and I was shooting on automatic the whole time and just like changing the exposure with the plus and minus thing, so I was over or under exposing. And I just saw this picture, but the picture works kind of as a silhouette, you know what I mean? Like, I'm really underexposed. I underexposed it. If I'd exposed just for, you know, the skin or something, it wouldn't have had any drama in it. But as it turned out, and it's almost one of my favourite pictures from the film. So like it was great when, because so much was happening, you know, that like, you know, there's like, it was like a real experience. Like I think that people often, when you're watching that, it was like, man, this was almost the same experience as if you were in the International Hotel in Las Vegas, you know, in the 70s, watching the real thing, because all the ingredients were there, including the bloody hotel, you know, interior, and 60-person orchestra playing, and a band, you know, Elvis's backing band, and 500 extras, you know, all having dinner, even though the food was fake, but, you know, like, and screaming, and they were playing live, like they were really playing through amplifiers. So, like, it was hard to take a bad picture. Hey, I might have somebody coming at 3 o'clock. Let me just have a look. Yes, I've got someone coming in 2 minutes, or 5 minutes, so I might have to just make a little session up. The thing about making portraits in this little environment is that I see it as a bit of a, firstly it feels like a theatre set. You know, it's just a table and a chair so it's a sort of a neutral, kind of an innocuous environment that's also extremely familiar to all of us. And then when I really started to think about it and what worked in this, why it works in this environment to take portraits like this, I think a lot of it's to do with the fact that, you know, we all have conversations at tables. Like, this idea of sitting across the table from somebody and having a talk to them is a safe and familiar thing. And then, so like, if I asked somebody to come in here and just stand against that wall and I stood opposite them with my camera pointed at them, I think it would feel, I mean, if it was me, I think I would feel very exposed and quite vulnerable, and I think it would almost feel a bit aggressive. I mean, this is all kind of subconscious stuff, but I think that there's something about being invited to sit at a table and put your elbows on the table, and it changes it. You immediately kind of relax. And then the very fact that the camera's on the other side of the table, I think also accounts for something. There's a sort of barrier between the person who is being photographed and me and that camera, and it's kind of impenetrable. So, you know, it's almost like there's a line in the sand that you kind of have to work towards crossing, so that then when that line is crossed, it's kind of by mutual agreement, if that makes any sense. Like, if I have to reach in and move something or touch someone's hair or something, then you sort of, you know, you ask permission, and then there's this, I can't even explain it beyond that. But it just, it kind of works, because I think people feel comfortable. And then because they feel comfortable, and the other contributing factor is that where the studio is, the fact that it feels like it's on the road, the fact that like the curtains are sort of transparent, you can see out, people can't see in, but you sort of feel quite connected to the outside world, which again contributes to this idea that somebody might. And then I've found, while I'm here making portraits of people, is that there's the whole thing I've talked about before about the experience of taking the picture, I think is as important as the picture. Like, you know, like there are two parts to making the photograph. Being here in the moment, taking the picture, and taking that picture being a collaborative thing. It's like with me collaborating with you to make the picture. Because I also think there are like two ways to make good portraits. You can either torture somebody, which there are amazing photographers historically who seem to have been able to do that, would make someone so uncomfortable that they would, you know, there's an awkwardness in the picture. And then when you're looking at that picture afterwards, you're not there to witness the kind of pressure the person was under to make it, and they're often extraordinary pictures. Or what I'm more comfortable is this idea that we kind of, through talking to each other, we kind of work together and make a picture. And it's a mutual thing, and it is not any more excruciating than it has to be, if that makes sense. Oh, here's Louise. Here she is. You look beautiful.
Oh, do I? Oh, my God, I need to.
This is my girlfriend Louise, who lives up the road. One of my girlfriends.
I've got a little few props.
What do you got? Have a seat.
Yeah, I'll just have to show
How was your day? Really?
Not good. You don't want to hear the details.
Oh, no.
I work in disability.
Okay.
Yeah, with children, teaching art.
Now she's here with a disabled photographer.
No?
Oh, that's nice, but I don't think, no, because that might not read very well.
Okay.
I just think you look
Might
great
not
like
look tarty or something.
What are we using this picture for, Louise? There could be some, no, come and sit.
I've got also,
What else you got?
You don't like the flowers. I've got drop earrings.
Yes.
I've got my lovely
Oh, I like that too.
velvet coat.
Yes.
Nicola Finetti.
Would you wear that over the top of what you've got
Yeah,
on?
I think so.
Why don't you have them all? Yeah, I like that.
Oh! What
Like
else
that.
I've got?
Oh, right.
Yes, because last time I've got all the tricks in here. Tricks. And I noticed at the Met thing they were wearing the gloves. I've got the
Oh.
the gloves.
No, but I like your hands.
No, they're putrid.
Oh.
No, they're gardener's hands. The good thing about having gardener's hands is that...
Well, you can wear whatever you
no,
want.
live
It's
a
your
long time.
picture.
Gardening makes you live a long time.
Yeah. How is your garden?
Pretty good. Mum
Yeah.
gardens every day and she's 93. Look.
Right.
No, too dramatic.
Well, we'll have a
Too
look.
much.
I don't think you need them.
You don't do
No.
that. Okay, whatever. Whatever. All right, let's...
Come and sit in there. This is
Okay.
all right.
Just amazing.
Sit. Put your arms like just fold your arms and sit in like close, just so that I can get the lighting. I'm not like
The arms have aged.
we've all aged, Louise. Some have aged better than others, and I would put you in that category.
The better category, thank the Lord.
You are.
But the school photos that they took the other day...
Okay, I know what you should
look
do.
100.
That you would feel. Put the coat on over the top, because then I think all the lacy black with just bits of skin coming through would look beautiful. And then I'm going to just change my lighting a little bit.
I do like doing the whole... Well, not for you, but I like doing the Frida thing with the flowers. I've been doing that a lot.
Right. Well, you can put the flower.
Flowery headbands.
Right. Well, we can do something like that. I mean, you can.
Oh, it's up to you.
You get all the pictures. You can like. You know what? Now you sit there. See, I think this looks great like that. Simple. That down there. You don't need that. Too young for that. Yeah. Now you just stay there and look. Stay exactly like that. I love that. Let me
I
look.
think that the...
Oh, see, that's beautiful. Look at that. I love that. I like that earring. I think you should keep that blue one on.
Do you think they're my new Navajo ones? Aren't they beautiful?
Ah, right.
From Double Bay at that lovely shop. you know, that sells all the...
Oh, is she still there?
Yeah, she's
Four
still
Winds
there.
Gallery.
Yeah, Four Winds.
Right.
Yeah, I just got them.
Yeah.
I don't have...
She has beautiful things.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's been there for a long time.
She's quite nice. Yeah.
Oh, stay like that, looking down to me like that. Can I move one bit of hair?
Yeah, whatever.
No, keep your head this
my
way.
My hair's a bit long at the moment.
No, I like it. Keep your head like that way and then chin up and looking down at me. I love that. Look at me, I mean the camera. I've got this sort of... I like that slightly haughty... That's great. Change your hands a little bit though, Louise. Like just fold them in together, like yes, like that. But then I love when your head's around a bit and you're like looking. Yeah, you'll like that.
I think that my 3/4 profile's better.
I like the 3/4 profile.
I don't know, maybe.
No, I like it. I think it's good when you're slightly out that way, and then you're looking down to me. You've got the good cheekbones, and then if you keep your chin up a little bit and look down to me. I didn't say that. You said that. You don't have a double. What if you leant down onto your like lean down? Oh, there you go. Even like that. Don't punch yourself in the chin though. It's kind of nice when you just lean on. Like even if you lean onto use your try stay on that side. This arm. See how you're like punching yourself. Yeah. Like turn it over and like put the weight of your head on you. Oh, see, I like that. Turn your fingers have a couple of fingers on there or something, maybe.
Look, I've got paint under the nails and everything to do. I don't do...
How can you, lean your head into your hand? Put your hand in your... Oh, that's
hand's not good.
See, that's nice. But then give me that... Change your hand, actually put your fingers under and put your weight of your head on your hand. Oh, that's quite... Yes, there. See, that's quite nice.
Do you want to
shake it out a bit. Yeah, eyes down into here. But bring your arms down again. I think it's almost stronger when you're slightly, move that. A little bit that way. Yes. There, see, that's great. Oh, there we go. Stay there. Oh, that's lovely. Look.
It's pretty nice. Looks good with all the black.
Mitford's sister.
And then
there. Hang on. See this bit of hair here? Can we push that back a bit? Just so there's not so much hair there. All right, then just look down to me. I don't like it. I've got to push it.
You see, there's ways of hiding this business here, the $7,000 operation thing you need. Ways of hiding. Is
that what it costs? Have you rung up?
Bill, the boo builder that's Tatiana's friend, told me.
Oh, really? Give your hair a little, do something pull it out, because I think I've mucked it up. How do you, see that's, oh, see, there you go, that's better. Oh, stay there, that's amazing. That's it. Oh, I love that. Bring your face to me, just tiniest bit, there.
I do pop eyes. That's what I do with it. Popping my eyes.
I like that.
Oh, they look pretty good.
See, I think you do look great. Pull this sleeve down your arm just a tiny bit. Yep, there you go. And go back into where you was. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, in there. Yeah, there you go. Oh, there you go. That's lovely. That hand in the back, just to open your fingers up. Yes. Open these front ones a little bit. Oh, pull them under, just yes, there. But come round onto me a tiny bit more. There. Chin up higher, I love when you're look right down onto the camera. Stay there. I'm just going to we nearly got it. I just want to. So chin up and then look too high. Down a bit and then bring your face this way, down. There. And then don't smile, just keep the but in your eyes, yeah. Yes, there. Then just look out that way a little bit. Give me that profile, a tiny bit that way, a bit more. And then look back to me. and give me that kind of slightly haughty, superior look.
You're making me laugh.
Oh, that's beautiful. I think we got it. I love that.
Have you got the Vaseline on the lens?
Covered in Vaseline. It's like half an inch thick.
Doesn't that make it, gets rid of all the...
I'm not fucking Snowden. It's not
Doesn't
19.
that get rid of the wrinkles, the Vaseline on the lens?
Can do. Give your hair, put more hair on the shot. Yeah, like that's better. Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, there you go. Swap your hands. So this hand, yeah.
They're a bit
Like
tight.
it's quite big in the front. Yeah. Oh, there you go. We got it. As much as I love digital photography and as much as it's changed everything and it's opened doors for a lot of people, and I mean, I shoot everything digitally now, pretty much. What it has done in a way is that, like, there was a time that a lot of your week would centre around going to the lab to pick up your film. Look at clip tests, look at test rolls, you know, that were being processed, pick up proof sheets. And invariably you would run into other photographers. And like if it was a Friday night, you'd go out for a drink, or and tagging along with you would be your assistants, So there was this whole kind of community that kind of emanated out from the lab, but I think it was really healthy for the industry because it kept people communicating with each other. You sort of had allies, And while people were quite competitive and you were certainly not necessarily showing your proof sheets to each other, you were able to sort of... And that disappeared. Like now, nobody goes to the lab anymore. Everything, you download your work onto a hard drive and you're sitting at a computer to edit it and to, even all the post-production side of things, sending pictures out, everything is that you can do that. You're a bit of an island now as a photographer. And that's a shame, I think, because there's no... So, I don't know where I'm going with this other than, I started doing these kind of workshops for people. And often it's like young photographers will come and do a session and there's like a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that, like there was a good, interesting thing as a photographer came to see me the other day and we were talking and she was telling me what she does. And she's like a photographer that, excuse me, I can't remember what part of Sydney she was in. And I don't want to give too much away because it's, her story. But she has a business taking kind of glamour for photos, right? And a lot of her work is with sex workers because they need kind of glamorous, heightened photographs, for their websites or for their work, to advertise their work. And she had a degree in some sort of, she trained as a counsellor. Like she was really busy because she was really, obviously, a safe place for people to come and be photographed, because I think it's an area that's populated with some real dickheads. And she was the exact opposite of that. And she came in and we were talking, she said, look, this is what I do, but I don't feel like it's, I don't have something going on that feels, more about photography. This is not the sort of pictures I want to necessarily take, but I'm busy and I'm making good money and my studio's busy and, and just from having that conversation, I was able to say to her, I said, look, if you're looking for a personal project, you've already got it. They're coming through the door. There's a stream of interesting people coming through. Why don't you, in the other corner of your studio, set up just a little simple backdrop and a table or a chair or something and just make a portrait of each person for you, before you go and do your kind of glamour shoot. And she was like, a light bulb went off. She was like, of course. It was staring her in her face. But not because I had had any sort of revelation, just because we had actually sat there and had a conversation about it. And what wasn't obvious to her was obvious to me. You know, I'm sure equally it could have been reciprocated. So we've kind of lost that a little bit. And then I think, you know, the other thing is that photographers get very protective of themselves, and there's ego and shit involved. And like even my whole idea of doing this sort of portrait studio, I mean, I guarantee that would have been considered really uncool by a lot of your sort of, you know, fashion people. That, why would you do that, you know? But really, and now of course I notice they're all trying to do it, but it's not uncool. It's kind of much cooler than anything I've ever done before, you know, because it's fucking authentic and it's real and it is quite democratic. And I have, you know, I realise that what's unique about it is that I've learnt, the lesson I've learnt is that the process of taking the picture is just as important as the picture. And so that communication that you have with the person that you're photographing, that memory of that and that little bubble of time, even if it's only half an hour, is everything. And then from that, you've got this picture, and that picture refers back to that moment. And that's what I think's so important, and I think that's what's so much more than I've been doing up to this point. So it's not an uncool thing to do. I think it's the exact opposite, and I think that people that think it is are just doing themselves a disservice because they're like not thinking about photography in the right way.